Alright, Algebra and Functions number 3. Before we do that, let's go ahead and look at our test taking strategies. You want to make sure you read the question and read the question again. If it's a word problem, underline what the question is asking and all numbers. If it's a word problem, circle all math terms and vocabulary. Use logic. Does your answer make sense? If it's a graph, try plugging in a point on the line. If you don't know how to solve a problem, can the answers be plugged into the question? So we're actually going to use this last tip for 1A. And so let's pretend we don't know how to solve this. And so we have these 4 possible answers. And so when you have a number next to x, that just means multiply. So this x is the variable. It's waiting for a value to be plugged in. So if we take that first -5 and plug it in, we want to see, does it equal 17? So 3 times -5 is -15. And -15 plus 2 is -13 plus 2. I'm sorry, is -13. And so -13 does not equal 17. So that's false, so that means it's not A. So now you could go and try B. You could try C, you could try D. So if you don't know what to do, you could always take these answers and plug them in. If you do know what to do, it's always best to do the math. So if we look at this equation, whenever we solve an equation, we always want to get the variable by itself. So our goal is to have x equals something. And so when we undo the equation, we get rid of the number next to x and the number being added or subtracted to the x. So we're going to undo the 2 first. So we minus 2 from both sides. And so this goes away. It becomes 0. We don't need to write that. So it's just 3x equals 15. And when you have a number next to x, it means multiply. And so the the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we divide both sides by 3. And so these x's become 1. So this is 1x. And I don't need to write the 1 because 1 times x is just x. The 1's there. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So the correct answer here is D. So when you come to a problem like this, if you don't remember how to solve it, you can just take your answers and plug it in. So go ahead and try 1B. You're going to have the work shown to get credit. You either show the work of solving it or you show the work of plugging it in. Alright, 2A, a piece of pipe is 80 inches in length and is cut into 2 pieces as shown in the diagram below. What is the value of x? And so what we have here is we have this piece of the pipe plus this piece, and that's going to have to equal 80 inches. So like before, if you didn't want to go through and solve this, you could just pick a number here and plug it in and see if it works. So like we could pick 20, and it says 2x, so that would just be 2 times 20 is 40, and 40 plus 32 does not equal 80, so we know it's not B. So you could just keep plugging the numbers in until you get an answer that equals 80. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write an equation because they tell us that this part plus this part is going to equal the entire thing. So we know that this is going to be 2x plus 32 is going to equal the length of the entire pipe, which is 80. So now it's just a 2-step equation that we solve. We do the opposite of a positive 32, so we minus 32 from both sides. So this becomes 0, which we don't need to write, and so we get 2x equals, and now we subtract the 32 and get 48. Now divide both sides by 2, and x equals 24. So you can either guess and check, plug them in, show the work, or you can solve it this way, your choice. All right, Jessica is reading a 448 page book, and during the first 7 hours, she has read 196 pages. If she continues reading at the same rate, so she's going to read at the same rate, how many more hours will it take to complete the book? So one of the key parts of this question, it says how many more hours. Not how many total hours, but how many more hours is she going to need? So a couple different ways you could solve this problem is if she has to read 448 pages and she's already read 196, how many more pages does she need to read? So we just subtract these two numbers. And we get 252. So you can think about this a couple different ways. If she reads for 7 hours, she's going to read a total of 196 pages. So she only needs 252 to go, but obviously it's going to take more than 7 hours. So now as we look over here at our possible choices, it's not 7, because 7 would be 196. So now let's double this. If she were to read for 14 hours, how many pages would she read? And so we just got to come over here and double it. You can multiply it by 2 or just add them together. So that would be 392 pages. So for after 14 hours, that's 392. But again, she only needs to read 252. So that means it's going to be less than 14 hours. So that means it's not C, because it has to be less than 14. It's not D, so the correct answer has to be B. So this is an example of where we try to use logic to get the correct answer. If you want to write an equation, you can do that. So if you want to use the equation, you need to figure out how many pages she reads in 1 hour. And so you would take the 196 and divide it by 7. And so that means she reads 28 pages per hour. So 28 pages times X, the number of hours more she needs to read, and that would have to equal that 252. And so then you would just divide both sides by 28. And so then you would get X equals 9. Now for this problem, using logic is an easier way to go about it. All right, 4A, Robert's toy car travels at 50 centimeters per second at high speed and 20 centimeters per second at low speed. If the car travels at 20 seconds for high speed and 30 seconds at low speed, what distance will the car have traveled? Okay, so we have two different speeds. We have the high speed, and that's 50 centimeters per second, and it goes for 20 seconds. And then we're going to also add in the low speed, which is 20 centimeters per second, and it's at that speed for 30 seconds. So now you just need to do 50 times 20, so off to the side. If you can't do it in your head, just multiply them together. So 20 times 50 is 1,000. Now an easier way to do that is see how you have the two zeros. So you have two zeros, and 2 times 5 is 10. So you have the 10 plus those two zeros. So if I'm going to use that shortcut, right now I have 0 and 0. So 0 and 0, and 3 times 2 is 6. So 1,000 plus 600 gives us 1,600. So a lot of times students will see a word problem and skip it. On the high school exit exam, if you skip all the word problems, you are not going to pass. You have to try the word problems, break it down, highlight, underline, circle, do what you need to do so that the problem makes sense. Make sure you do all the B problems in order to get full credit.